Hello everyone, this is Richa Gupta, Assistant Professor, Psychology Department, the BHOPAL School of Social Sciences, and today we are going to continue with our topic of functionalism, and today we are going to see the contribution of functionalism and the differences between the structuralist and the functionalist school of thought. As we know that there is always a confusion between the structuralism and functionalism school of thought, so we are going to understand them better today. So let's start. The contribution of functionalism to psychology. We are going to look at them one by one. First is, it shifted the focus of psychology from the study of the elements of consciousness to the study of the functions of mental processes. So as we were seeing that in the structuralist school of thought, we were talking about the elements of our consciousness. Now the functionalism shifted it from the structure to the process, the functional process. How things are working and why they are working in a certain way. So we were talking about that in functionalism. Then it emphasized the importance of evolution in understanding the mind and behavior. As we know that Francis Galton has taken a lot of inspiration from Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. He started working on this concept of evolution, that how the human mind has evolved into what it is now, and what has led to the evolution of our consciousness. So he was working on that, and it also, that same line continued when the functionalist school of thought was founded, and they were also trying to understand the adaptation behavior, the adaptation module of the mind. Then it highlighted the role of emotions and motivation and adaptation. And as we said that the human mind wanted to adapt to the changing environment situation. So what were those motivations? What were those emotions which made the person want to adapt to the changing environment and to accommodate itself in the changing environment? So functionalism was trying to understand about the various emotions, the emotions of anger, fear, the love, happiness. So functionalism was working on all such things and understanding all those various human aspects of human personality. Then functionalism promoted the use of scientific methods to study psychology. Though we always contribute to the systematic and scientific study to the structuralist school of thought, but in structuralism, as we have always said, that it was more about the introspection. So it was very subjective. When it came to the functionalism, they were very much objective. They wanted to understand about the whole, about how they were not talking about the collective consciousness. They were talking about how things are changing the society, how things are changing the dynamics of the society, and they were trying to understand it through scientific methods. Like the first thing which we see in scientific methods is observation. They were doing their observation in the real world settings and not only limited to the laboratory setup. They were asking questions. What is best for a particular thing and how that thing is influencing the behavior of the person. Then they were making the hypothesis that based on the deductions they have seen, they were trying to make the hypothesis about the various human behaviors. And then when they actually did their studies and they got either the hypothesis correct or incorrect, they were more sure and more confident about their findings and their studies. Now, it led to the development of new areas of psychology such as education psychology and industrial psychology. As we have seen John Dewey's work in the field of education psychology, in the field of industrial organization psychology. So why industrial organization psychology? Because when you are working in an organization or when you are in an industry, the management, the administration needs to understand how their employees are working and what is giving them that motivation, what can make them have a proper, more suitable environment to work in. So the role of functionalism in the field of industrial organization psychology is also very applauding and very as we can say, it was a lot of contribution has been done in this area. So we also owe a lot in the for the functionalism school of thought in the field of industrial and organization psychology. Now, when we see about the as we have seen the contribution, now it is also very important to understand the difference between the structuralism and functionalism school of thought. As I have mentioned in the first slide, that there is always a confusion between how structuralism and functionalism are different, as they both are trying to understand the human mind and behavior. But there is a difference, and we are going to understand them and take them one by one. So first is definition. Structuralism is a school of psychology that seeks to understand the structure of the mind and its perceptions by analyzing those perceptions into their constituent parts. So structuralism was talking about the perception, the sensations, and they were breaking them into parts and pieces and trying to understand the basic element. They were working a lot on the sensational parts. So it was a lot of things they wanted to understand in the structuralist school of thought, which were only limited to the individual experiences and the experiences of that particular area and part of the body. But functionalism, it was more of a comprehensive school. So functionalism is a school of psychology that focuses on the purpose and function of the mind and behavior and individual adaptation to the environment. So how the mind as well as the behavior, as I have already mentioned, that functionalism also helped in the foundation of the behavioral school of psychology. So it started from understanding the mind and behavior of individual in adaptation to the environment, how the individual has to adapt to a given environment so that the individual can flourish. Otherwise, the individual will, the existence will come into question. So functionalism was trying to understand those concepts. So there was a difference. The structuralism was trying to understand the structure of the human mind and behavior. Functionalism was trying to understand the functions of the human mind and behavior. They were talking about the basic elements, and they were talking about the functions. They were talking about the process of how and why. So there is this main difference. Then the key proponents of structuralism we call Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Titchener. See, Wilhelm Wundt is known as the proponent in structuralism, but he actually founded a school of psychology known as voluntarism, though it didn't flourish to be a school, but it was a system, and voluntarism was, what it means was through their own will. So in voluntarism, what was happening? In voluntarism, people were doing a lot of introspection and understanding from their independent will, understanding their behavior, and trying to understand their feelings, trying to understand their emotions, the sensations. So Wilhelm Wundt worked on that. Edward Titchener, who was the student of Wilhelm Wundt, he realized what Wilhelm Wundt was doing and he understood it properly, but then he went to he wanted to expand it more, and then he founded the structuralism, the structuralist school of thought. Now, when it came to functionalism, Edward L. Thorndike, John Dewey, and George Herbert Mead. These people, they were the key proponents, and also, as we all know, William James. They were the one who were working in the field of functionalism, and they have worked extensively so in the field of functionalism, so that we get to know more about the whys and hows of our human mind. Methodologies. So in structuralism, they use introspection and mental tests. Introspection, as we all know, that taking into consideration the feelings, the emotions, and understanding yourself and the various sensations you are experiencing. It was all about, structuralism was all about the experiences. And functionalism, the methodology used by them was observation, especially in the real world setup, and mental test, comparative methods. Comparative methods, as I have said, in laboratory as well as in the real world context. Now, the focus of structuralism was understanding the individual elements of the consciousness and how they combine to create our mental experiences. So the focus of structuralism was more on the experiential part. And focus of functionalism was the adaptive purpose of mental process and behavior. So the functionalism was trying to understand how the human mind is adapting, and the mental processes which are making them adapt, and the behaviors which are fruitful and which are good for the human species. So they were trying to understand those in the functional school of thought. Now, Yes, there are certain criticisms. So, overly concerned with internal behavior which is not directly observable and cannot be accurately measured. Structuralism was all about the elements, the breaking down of elements, and they were not, because as it was very subjective, so we cannot say it for all, and that is why it was not very accurate. It was not very something which can be called as true scientific in nature. In functionalism lacked a systematic methodology, making it difficult to test its theories empirically. So, though we were saying that they were making it more scientific, but a proper method, a structured method was not there, and that is what making it difficult for replicate the theories and understand and make it more viable for everyone to understand. Then contribution, we are coming to contribution, laid groundwork for cognitive and experimental psychology. So, structuralism had done a lot of work because they were trying to understand the basic nature of the elements of the human's sensations and perceptions. So, as we see, cognition is what? Cognition is all about how our human mind and thinking and our greater thinking processes, thought processes work, language work. So, structuralism has contributed in that field. For functionalism, development of humanistic psychology and the cognitive revolution. In functionalism also, because we are trying to understand the adaptive nature and the how the mind is working in the adaptive nature, so it was more of the humanistic in nature. Perspective, structuralism was reductionist, focusing on breaking down mental processes into most basic components. So they were only interested in understanding the basic components of our basic elements of our consciousness, whereas functionalism was more holistic. It wanted to understand not only the basic understanding of our sensation and perception, but also the behavior and the whys and hows of our human behavior. So, holistic, emphasizing the whole of human experience and considering mental processes in their complete form. So, this was the functionalism we were talking. So, these were the major differences in the structuralism and functionalism school of thought, the contribution of functionalism. Thank you so much for attending the class, and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.